Hi, my name is Hope and this is my final presentation for the Synoptic Gospel course through Global Pathway. There are a few things I'd like to generally go over during this presentation. The first point being, what does the gospel mean? Secondly, what is the purpose of the gospel? Thirdly, when were the gospels written? Fourth, why synoptic? And fifth, how were the synoptics inspired? Let's take a look at the synoptic gospels. 3 out of the 4 gospel accounts are referred to as synoptic gospels. The 3 gospels included in this are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Now, the word synoptic means seen together or with the same eye. Now, let's take a look at when they were written. Dating the Gospels is very important. Proving the Gospels were written early proves that there would not have been enough time for eyewitnesses to creep into the Gospel accounts, since it would most likely show that Jesus' disciples wrote them. A key factor in determining when the Gospel accounts were written is the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. None of the Gospels mention the destruction of the Jewish temple in 70 AD. Now, this is significant because Jesus had prophesied its destruction when he said, "As for these things which you are looking at, the days will come in which there will not be left one stone upon another, which will not be torn down." And this is stated in Luke 21, verse 6, Matthew chapter 24, verse 1, and Mark chapter 13, verse 1. This prophecy was finally fulfilled in 70 AD, proving that these gospel accounts were written sometime before that prophetic fulfillment. Nevertheless, it is generally believed that Matthew was written before AD 70 and as early as 50 AD. Mark is said to be the earliest gospel with an authorship between AD 55 and AD 70. Luke was written before the books of Acts, and Acts does not mention Nero's persecution of the Christians in AD 64 or the death of James, Paul, or Peter. Therefore, we conclude that Luke was written before AD 62. Lastly, most believe that the book of John was written in the 80s to the 90s. Though there is some debate on the dates of when the Gospels were written, they were most assuredly completed before the close of the first century and written by eyewitnesses or under the direction of eyewitnesses. Next, let's talk about why synoptic. They are called the Synoptic Gospels because they share a lot of material between all 3 books. Matthew, Mark, and Luke present the basic story of Jesus in similar ways, including order of events, stories, sayings, and similar language. There are passages that are word for word the same in all 3 Gospels, and other passages where it is obvious that one Gospel has taken text from the other and either added or taken parts out. However, it is important to remember that they do still have their own differences. For example, Matthew focuses on Jesus as a prophesied Jewish Messiah. Mark focuses on Jesus as a suffering servant who moves in secret among his people. Luke presents Jesus as Savior of all people, including Gentiles. Now, let's take a look at how the Synoptics were inspired. There are many different theories to how the Synoptics were written and where their inspiration came from. Oral tradition assumed that each of the authors wrote independently of each other and simply recorded their Gospels from the story and parables retold through oral repetition. The oral basis was handed from mouth to mouth, was not at all put into writing at all. In fact, there was no disposition to write. The mutual use of hypothesis arises that 2 of the writers used the first gospel written to base theirs off of. An interesting theory is the use of sources hypothesis. Now, there is speculation that not only was there mutual use, but also a theoretical document referred to as Q that possibly was comprised of things and narratives. There may be also sources, as both Matthew and Luke contain materials that have not been found anywhere else. With these things said, the true purpose of the gospel is so simply and eloquently stated by John in chapter 20, verse 31, when he said, "So that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life." I hope my background on understanding the Synoptic Gospel helps you understand them in a new light. God bless and have a good day.